Good evening and welcome all. I'm your host Mr. Ramsay, and tonight we have 50 more two-sentence horror stories. That's right, we're on our third episode of this series. If you want to find the first two episodes, you can simply check for the first link in the description or either the pinned comment. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. My wife told me she thinks that she is going mad as she keeps hearing voices in our house. After she committed suicide, my girlfriend helped me remove all the hidden speakers from around the house. My grandmother died giving birth to my mother, who died giving birth to me. As I feel my consciousness slip away, I pray that my baby is a boy. As I slit her throat, I looked in her unblinking eyes and realised too late that she wanted to live. I knew it to be true, because mirrors don't lie. Trapped and starving in a World War I trench, I gave my last ration to my best friend and partner. Adolf seemed so passionate about having a future in politics, it'd be wrong to let him die. Did you know that the Centre for Disease Control keeps a sample of every disease known to man in an underground vault? Did you know that some of those diseases can only be preserved inside of living human hosts? As I felt the knife run down my skin, I felt oddly happy. Well, it wasn't my skin yet. They say that every time you learn something, a new wrinkle appears on your brain. After some investigation, I was angry to find out that my students didn't learn anything from my lessons. My husband visited me every week in prison with new photos of our children. There was no better reminder to keep my mouth shut. I must be a good boy, I must be a good boy, the dog kept repeating to himself. After being told so many times not to bark, he remained silent as he watched the serial killer silently sneak in through the window. As they came around the corner, I lunged for the cage door, screaming and pleading for help. "You have to get me out of here." "I told you this haunted house has the most realistic actors," one of them laughed as they walked away. I dropped my son off at the bus stop for his first day at school and wished him luck. I got an email from the school saying my son had been marked absent. "Count backwards from 100, said the dentist. As I slipped into unconsciousness, I saw the hand that held the drill drift from my mouth to my eye. "Women and children first," rang through the loudspeaker, and so they lined the gallows. I've always wondered why the funny men in uniforms like to dig in Mum's garden. After all, she buried my body in the neighbour's backyard. When the insects started eating through my brain, I was horrified, but now I realised that I loved my little friend and would do anything to protect him. You will too when you stop fighting, and let me put this in your ear. I started crying and shouted to my husband. I thought we had a deal. I watched him stare at my dead body, spit out the pills and smirk. As my child's head finally started to crown after 30 minutes of pushing, I was filled with wonder. That wonder turned to horror when only the head came out. I found a genie who granted me a single wish, to be with the woman I love forever. If I had a second wish, it's that he'd have brought her back to life first. Today marks 12 years of sobriety for me. As I perched over my next victim, knife in hand, I realised this filled the void much better than alcohol ever did. "Nana, I really like this peanut cookie." "Good," scoffed the old lady. "I always knew your mum was exaggerating that nut allergy nonsense." I visited Nathan on his deathbed at his request, despite having not seen him since bullying him at school 30 years ago. I assumed he wanted me to apologise before he died, but he just smiled, shook my hand, then told me about how infectious the disease killing him was. "Someone broke into my house today while my parents were out. I tried shaking the chains as hard as I could to get their attention, but the basement walls were just too thick. It never bothered me that my family ate roadkill. That was until my little sister's ball rolled into the middle of the road. I paid the ransom in full, and I rushed to my infant's daughter's side to scoop her in my arms again. As I lifted her body to my chest to squeeze her tight, her head and limbs remained in place in the crib. The crazy old man pleaded for me not to enter the tunnel, warning it will take years off my life. As my skin wrinkled and my hair greyed, I ran back outside trying to warn a younger me from entering. My youngest son refuses to call my wife Mummy. She's not just a doll, I'll make him learn it one way or another. Oh fuck yes, she moaned while bouncing on me. With tears in my eyes, I laid on the bed, doing nothing except begging her to stop. My brother would often find new ways to make his wax figures look more realistic. I stood in his wax museum watching as everyone admired his work. If only they could hear me screaming. He gently caressed my thigh and planted a soft peck on my neck. A part of me hoped my dad was only doing this to snap me out of my coma. I was told to check the backseat of my car for intruders when I got in. I guess this lady wasn't told the same thing. I woke to the smell of smoke and scrambled for my phone, laptop and emergency bag before I bolted through the flames and flung myself out the front door. It was only when I was outside that I remembered that this was my weekend with the kids. My roommate eyed herself in the mirror, feeling confident about the weight she lost. That is until the next morning when I found her on the floor, spasming as the tapeworm burrowed deep into her brain. My friends say she's a psychic, but I know she's lying. If she really was, then she would have been able to see me weeks ago. Don't be doing something like that in front of my children, the woman screamed at me before grabbing it out of my hand and smashing it on the ground. I looked down at what was left of my only EpiPen. As my vision began to get blurry, my breathing became more laboured. I remember being awake as they were cutting the tumour out of my brain. They told me it was so they'd know if they had accidentally damaged anything input. I remember being awake as they were cutting the tumour out of my brain. I heard the crack of the baseball bat and knew it was a home run, so I lifted my son up to catch it. I was filled with horror when I heard a second crack right above my head. The sailors rejoiced as the Kraken retreated back into the depths of the ocean. Thankfully, they didn't see the beast that drew the Kraken under. There is an extraordinary woman in my town who sells immortality in exchange for the heart of someone who loves you. I gave her the hearts of my friends, my family, wife and children, but she still won't make me immortal. Every night I check to make sure the doors are locked. Eventually they will leave one unlocked. Hydrofluoric acid burns skin but does not burn rubber. Perfect. The other kids in the water balloon fight will never know what hit them. Found my son's body hanging in his room and began to read the suicide note that he had left behind. Even in death, he is a disappointment, I muttered to myself as I noticed all the spelling mistakes he had made. My daddy says Mummy is happy and she's waiting to see us in heaven. I don't know, because she always seems angry when she visits me at night. After a long hot train ride, I was glad that they offered us a shower. I didn't really like that this camp wants us all to shower together, but at least we'll all be clean. There's a theory saying that animals can see ghosts. I think that's why the cat is watching me instead of watching its owner. My bully shoved me in a locker as the school ended for the day. As my body rots more and more, I wonder why no one has been to school for 2 months. My mother always told my brother never to open the box beneath the stairs. I'm glad he didn't listen. God knows how much longer I would have been in there. As I picked up the shovel, the man mumbled, "Please, I have 2 kids." "Oh, I know," I said as I dropped 2 body bags in a hole with him. I was so excited to finally show my family that my hearing came back. But when I heard their voices for the first time in years, I realised whatever thing was imitating them didn't bother to replicate the voices. The rope tightens around my neck, but I try to relax and welcome sweet death. As everything fades, the bedroom door opens, and the last thing I hear is a tiny voice saying, "Daddy?" Thank you for listening. If you have a sec, could you possibly hit the red subscribe button down below? Would mean a lot. Anyway, I'll hopefully catch you in the next one, and remember to check the links down below for part 1 and 2 to this 52 sentence horror story series. Thank you.